You're listening to Lords of Thunder podcast with Alpha Omega Sin and Happy Console Gamer.
Welcome, one and all, to another podcast with yours truly, Alpha Omega Sin, and the Luxurious.
Who? Luxurious? You
Yes.
I sound like I'm on a yacht or something nice. I'm just sitting here in my boxer shorts in my room, holding this microphone.
Oh, see, I was hoping that you were doing the no pants dance completely. You're half-assing it now. Come on now.
You know, sometimes when I do episodes, I wear boxer shorts, and nobody can see under the table, which is wonderful. That's true too.
I should probably do that more often. A lot of my videos you can only see from the waist down, so technically, I mean, I could just be, like, swinging and flinging.
That would be a great way to end a video, and you just kind of pixel it out when you really get rocking. You start doing the swinging, you know, and then you just have that all that pixeled out, Japanese style.
Yeah. Oh man, all the Japanese porn that they decide to go and just put the pixelation like right on the clit. I'm like, why did you even bother?
Japanese porn is the most hilarious stuff I've ever seen because everyone is the same. It's pixelated. You got giant bushes, and you just hear girls going, ah, ah. It's always the fucking same. It's hilarious.
Yeah, for some reason, like no matter the size that they're getting drilled into them, they are acting as if they are going through open heart surgery with no anesthesia.
It is. Oh man, that was funny. That's fucking. It's very, very true. It's crazy over there, I tell you. So, what are we doing today?
Well, today, besides having all this talk about porn and pixelated vaginas and stuff, I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing and all the other good stuff.
Oh, that's too nerdy for me.
Oh, come now. Don't you think it's cool to roll those 20-sided dice and then find out whether or not you were able to go and pick that lock?
No. I was just on the football field playing football at my local high school with the jocks.
Oh, well, don't worry, because according to a lot of people back in, like, the 80s and 70s and stuff, I'm down in a basement, and I'm trying to conjure Satan himself with advanced Dungeons and Dragons books, because that's what we do.
Man, I wish you could do that, because I would have fucking done that.
Yeah, see, the whole live action, like, role-playing stuff where people dress up and shit would be 10 times cooler if you literally had, like, a demon running around with you. Then you could reenact scenes from Doom or Shadows of the Doomed or however many games that end up plunging you directly into the heart of hell.
It's a funny world we live in where you say Dungeons and Dragons and it's still such a nerdy thing.
Yeah, why is there a stigma about Dungeons and Dragons and in like this day and age? It just seems kind of it's dumb.
Well, we're not in high school anymore, but let's go back for you. Tell me when you first discovered Dungeons and Dragons and what the scene was and what it was like for you back then.
Well, see, for what was interesting for me when I got into role-playing, I actually didn't start with Dungeons and Dragons. I knew of Dungeons and Dragons, but the person that ended up getting us all really into it, he actually was going the role-playing system called Palladium. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Palladium, like, the only downside to Palladium was there was a lot of things within their systems that was overly complex for, like, no reason at all. And it actually had, like, a more steep learning curve. But outside of that, they actually had the Robotech books, for example.
That's right. And we played Robotech back in the day. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff was all Palladium-based. And Palladium, I mean, Palladium and D&D pretty much go hand in hand, but D&D is a lot more streamlined and refined and easier to pick up and to actually, like, you know, you can go and rework some of the rules a lot easier than you could in Palladium. But, like, the dude's house, he had stacks on stacks on stacks of books everywhere. And, I mean, it was just so much stuff, and we were like, holy fuck. You know,
like the Ninja Turtles RPG. Do you remember that? That was part of it.
Yeah, and that was, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the cover of that, like, done in the old comic style of when it came out?
Yeah, we're talking 1988. That's the first time I ever saw those books. And yeah, it was like my friend, he would have Top Secret. He had Ninja Turtles. We had Robotech. We had, we were on, we're talking actually 88, 89 because we're on, what was it? Fucking second edition of Dungeons and Dragons, advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, I remember all those books so well. That was our staple of my childhood. For
Dude,
sure.
yeah, I like the idea that, like, to me, I had always heard about, okay, Dungeons and Dragons, that's role-playing and stuff, but I had no idea prior that they actually had, like, these theme books.
Yeah.
And, they actually have ones based around the Marvel universe, around the DC Comics universe. I know that they had one for Tenchi Muyo. And
did they? I didn't know about that.
dude, it just blew me away. Like, you could pull it up and it's like, oh, what are the stats for Ryoko and Ayaka and stuff, and what do these weapons do, and all the different places that they talk about, they had listed in there. And it's weird because, I mean, a lot of the books, they're very old, but you could still pick them up and use them. You can even take those kind of books because, I mean, we've done it. We've adapted a lot of those old books to work in something like Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, for example.
Yeah.
We just reworked certain things, but the fact that you had things illustrated for you in a vague understanding, like number-wise, what would be what and what would work with this. And it was just so damn cool seeing that. But that, for me, that was at least, oh man, I would have to say that was probably about 16 years ago that I'd started role-playing and stuff. So I know.
Sorry, if you don't mind, how old were you at that time?
That was, let's see, 14.
14, yeah. Hey, you know what's so funny? That was the same age as me.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, well, see, there you go. We have something else in common. Ugh.
But this, actually, we bring up an interesting thing because I am 10 years older than you, but I think about when you're 13, 14, that's when you're getting into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think as soon as you end up, like, hitting the teenage years, that's when you start branching out and going and doing stuff on your own. You're actually at the age that, you don't have to have parental guidance constantly in case you're going to gnaw your own damn arm off. And you start, like, really just seeing what the world is going to be about and trying stuff on your own. And, like, the idea that you can go, like, I can write up any character I want, and I can act them out, and I can design them and draw them up and stuff, and we have this map and shit, and it's like, yeah, you can do all that, and it sounds cool, and it helps if you're into video games. Jumping into, like, role-playing is not difficult at all if you're already into, like, basic console or PC RPGs.
Yeah. So you went over to your friend's place, and he's like, yeah, I got all these games, and did he introduce you and you started playing them, or how did that kind of...
Well, originally, we ended up, we all met him through a mutual friend, and it was all because we were gamers, and that was it. And we found out that he was really big into RPGs too and stuff. And he was like, hey man, why don't all of us just go back to my place? He was like, I've got booze at my place, and we can just play a bunch of video games. And blah, blah, blah. I just got a PS2 and stuff, and all this other shit. So he's going on about that, and or not a PlayStation 2, a PlayStation 1, sorry. And he ended up, we go back and we see some of the games that he has and stuff, and he's got, like, old RPGs, and then we see all the role-playing stuff, and he's like, do you guys role-play? We're like, no, we've heard about it. And he's like, oh man. And he pulls out, like, he's got these big binders, like those 5-star notebook type binders, and you open it up, and each one is like a character throughout the years that he actually had, like, multiple role-playing groups and stuff, and we were just, like, fascinated and really interested in it. And then, like, maybe like a week later, we went back strictly to roleplay because we set up a date, like, yeah, we'll show up, go back and start role-playing, and the rest was history.
It's so funny. The one thing that happened there that you were talking about was your interest. You're like, this is fucking cool. Yeah. I like this stuff. And you're either going to have that reaction or you're not going to be like, oh, okay, whatever. But you had the same kind of reaction as I had. It's like, this shit is fucking cool. It is. So the potential there, right?
Yeah, it's anything that allows you to really utilize your imagination.
Yeah.
And because the thing is, a lot of people think, oh, like, again, bringing up the whole stigma, most people just think that it's weird. And
Yeah.
and the thing is, I can understand that, but the thing is, a lot of people I got into role playing is we were all already role playing. We just invited people down to hang out and party and stuff. So
Yeah.
there's people like sitting around smoking weed, fucking drinking beer and shit. And then you got people role playing, and then we got music playing too. People playing video games and shit. And the house has got like 14 people in it.
That's what it used to be like for us. Yeah, totally.
See, dude, and you know what? And that's a perfect way for people to be like, dude, this looks kind of fun. I want to get in on this, and that's exactly what happens, and it's so freaking awesome.
Those are some of the best years of my life. Was like 1988, 89. Is like just completely like succumbing to your full nerdy desires. I mean, having no ifs, ands, or buts about. You're interested in women, but you're more interested in RPGs and hanging out with your nerdy friends and doing nerdy cool. And I hate using let me say something here. I hate using the term nerdy. I don't think because people play RPGs and all that's a nerdy hobby. That's a stigma, and that's what people have called it over the years. I just like to succumb to hanging out with my friends and getting into like fantasy imagination types of stuff. And I via playing video games or hanging out with my friends, it was such a wonderfully free time. Yeah. And just around the corner, you're about to get into women and dating, and it's going to get intense. But just before then, there's a really nice, wonderful moment when you're just a bunch of kids having fun with RPGs and stuff like that. It's a really nice, innocent time. It's really genuine. And that's the one thing I'm very nostalgic about. It's because it's such a genuine, wonderful moment in your life. I think they say that about 13 and 14. You're not corrupted at that point, So
did you ever? I know that this is one of the things that most people will say is, clearly anybody that's role playing is nothing but a virgin living in their mother's basement and stuff. But and apparently nothing but guys role play, which I can tell you from personal experience, that's a load of horseshit. But for you, like, how many chicks were you able to get into role playing, or girlfriends at the time, or friends, whatever?
Yeah. Oh, like I think the thing is, okay, the group that I was hanging out with in 1988, the initial group, they were very antisocially. They're a little bit silly with it all and all that, but I didn't care. I love them. I'm not judging them. They weren't into the women and dating scene yet, and I had a vast interest in that field. And what happened to me is a very interesting story. Is that there I was doing all the RPG stuff, and then I started skateboarding back in '88, and I skateboarded because I liked it. It wasn't because it was a lifestyle choice or anything like that. But I started hanging out with a different crowd of people. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that I started doing is, I kind of looked at it. This is such a symbolic time in my life. It was a huge changing point. I looked at something as like, I can keep on just hanging out with these guys who I loved and not get laid. Or I can hang out with these other bunch of people and go and party and go into a realm that I haven't gone in, but I'm very interested to go down. And I did something very interesting. I went and hung out with all the skateboarding guys and dated a lot and all that kind of stuff. But I always remained friends with my, RPG friends. And I never turned my back on them or thought I was cool or anything like that. I was the guy that got along with everybody. And at lunchtime, I would go and sit with my RPG friends, and I'd do that. And then I'd go and skateboard after school. But the thing is, they weren't dating, and they weren't dating for quite a few more years, let me say. And I didn't give a fuck about that. But I started dating, and I think what it is, and you're kind of the same. I think exactly the same. In fact, you're infectious with your enthusiasm. So when I would start to date somebody, I would wait a little bit, then I'd start telling them, hey, I'm kind of into this stuff. I like video games, all this. And if they were a cool girl, they would get down with it because they had an interest in me. And they thought it was, oh, well, that's interesting. I've never kind of been interested in this before. Some girls are like, yeah, I'm not really into that. But those are the girls I never dated because I didn't want to. If you start dating women and you have a good relationship, they'll get into your hobbies as much as you'll even try to get into their hobbies as much as you can. It's just one of those give and take types of things. It's nothing that, you're trying to sell them on Satanism. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so we have to kill the virgin girl at this time tonight. What
do you mean you left the sacrificial blood in the glove compartment? Damn it!
Damn, woman, when we get this straight, about our dating things. But that's what it was. And for me over the years, I've never gone out with a girl who didn't understand me for being into the hobby that I was into. And I think what I do is I make this shit cool because it is. I don't sell it, hey, you gotta come play Dungeons and Dragons with me. Or you can say, hey, come play Dungeons and Dragons with me. It's fucking cool. Yeah, it's all how you sell something.
It's one of those things that there's a reason why people like the stuff. Yeah. And if you show them, like you said, infectious enthusiasm, and if you can go and just showcase to them, this is why this is so fucking badass. I know everybody's going to tell you that this sucks a big bag of beaten dicks, but I can assure you that if you at least give this a shot, you might at least be able to grow some appreciation for it or even like it.
Yeah. I think how for you, have you ever had any issues with any women who are like, I really am, I'm just talking in general about, we're going to call it the hobby being into video games, into like RPGs. Have you ever had any girls like, I'm sorry, you're a fucking nut job. I can't get with this.
Dude, what's weird is, like, most of the time, whenever I would date somebody, they were either already into the stuff or were wanting to be into it, but just didn't actually have, anybody to sit them down and be like, here, play this. Or, hey, check this out. They didn't have anything like that. They just heard, this is what I heard somebody talk about, or I saw a commercial for this. And every chick that I've ever dated, from the time that I started role-playing, has at least role-played with me a couple times. And not in the bedrooms with whips and chains and shit, but legit, like, dice and D&D books and shit and character sheets. But it was one of those things, and it was always cool because there was times that, like, a couple of my exes, they actually started bringing their friends. You have no idea how, like, for some people out there, the very idea that several attractive women are showing up to party and roleplay does not make sense to them. That sounds like some fabricated fucking fictional bullshit.
Hey, and if it does, they should, if you guys are listening right now and that's happening to you, change the people that you're hanging out with, or hang out with some different people. Give it a shot. Like, see what's out there. There's a lot of women, and there's a lot of people that want to play this stuff in general. It doesn't matter if you're into guys, girls, whatever. There's a lot of people who are into this stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The thing is, when we were younger, considering the fact that how mainstream a lot of quote unquote nerd culture has become now. I know I've gone to so many comic book shops, and there's actually a game store near me that does this, but they have role-playing every single day that goes on, and I'll go there, there'll be people playing Magic the Gathering, there'll be people playing Warhammer and other tabletop gaming, then there's, like, several active role-playing groups going on. And the thing is, every single time that there's actual chicks there. And that's the thing. This is some advice from me to all people listening right now, both men and women. If you can't convince any of your friends for some reason, I assure you that there's at least somewhere out there, like at one of those comic book type stores, where they actually have shit like that going on. And if they don't have stuff like that going on there, ask them if you could. Yeah, because they're usually pretty into it because they're selling the books, and they're selling the dice and they're selling all the character sheets and shit, and it's just an obvious place to go and do that at, and it's actually kind of neat because it's like a hangout spot, and most people are like, I'm going to go to a bar and hang out. People are like, I'm going to the comic book shop to hang out.
Now, did you know one thing that I got a very busy schedule. But I've often fantasized, and I think I've talked about it in the past, that if I ever had any free time, which it's very rare, one of the things that I would love to do is go down to my local Warhammer store and be taught how to paint and sit there for the afternoon because they have these painting lessons there and just sit and paint fucking miniatures. And the thing is, I'm bringing that up is because it's to do with your point is, yeah, there I go to do something therapeutic for my brain. But also you never know who you're going to meet there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, put yourself out there. If you want to be into this hobby, then fucking get into it.
Yeah,
really embrace it and enjoy it.
Like, there's people that are honestly scared, or like they just become humbled just by wanting to even mention that they like half the crap that they do. And it's not as if you're saying, "Oh yeah, I love banging babies" or some weird shit like that. Like, you're into something that just so happens to not be, like, widely known and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, is it nerdy? Yeah, sure, whatever. I guess it is. But you want to know it? It's fucking fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
I personally prefer when people kind of, like, my favorite people are the ones that are just like, that shit is stupid. And then they try it and they're like, you know what? This is actually really cool. And then they become a big-time fan.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like people who embrace their own hobby. I like people that say, "Yeah, you know what, D&D is fucking awesome." I like people who stand up for it, then going, "Yeah, like just fucking just say it's great." You know what I mean? It's D&D is some of the best times I've ever had. It's so fucking. It's the most hilarious game that there is. It can be. I've been crying at the table. I've been laughing so hard, and these are recently. This is recently, like, playing D&D. There's something about that fucking game, though, man. I tell you, it's like I was thinking about it on the way home because I had a feeling that we'd be talking about Dungeons and Dragons today, and I was like Dungeons and Dragons it's one of the best. I think it's better than video games, because it gets your friends around a table. You're all sharing a collective story, and it's so fun. It's so you can go and be anything and do anything and go anywhere, have any kind of world happen. I mean, it's just an incredible game with limitless possibilities. It's only as limited as you make it. And I can't. So many good things to say about Dungeons and Dragons. Sorry, I had to rant about that.
No. That's the thing, though. That's the kind of passion that I actually enjoy hearing as somebody who will go on, like, I'm going to make this kind of character, and this is the kind of personality that they're going to have. I'm just going to do all this crazy stuff, because, like, one of the things I see, like, there are so many times that when I go and roleplay, we would bring in new people, and they would clam up automatically. They're extremely social people, but the minute that they go into roleplaying, they're like, I go to the inn, and I get a room, and I go to bed. That's it. And I'm just like, no, this is what's going to happen. I'm like, so on your way to the inn, roll a spot check. Yeah. And then I'm like, it's just like, you start throwing things at them to make sure that they end up having to get out of their comfort zone. Like, they need to have fun.
We're very careful, though, with our games. I don't sound like we make sure that we invite fun people into our games. So everybody is really, like, they're fucking crazy in their own fantastic ways. I was playing and I was the most normal character out of the bunch, but everybody else was fucking whack ass. But because they were so whack ass, it made me start doing whack ass shit. It's just it's all the DM you have. If you have a good DM, that's half the battles right there.
Oh, yeah.
And have some funny players. A good
DM can. Your DM is, for anybody who's just like DM, your dungeon master. Dungeon master is essentially kind of like, imagine the god or the narrator of the entire adventure. They pretty much get to be all the NPCs, the non-player characters that you'll go and run into. They get to play out the roles of the villains and the monsters and stuff. They get to tell you about what's going on in the world, essentially. And, you're pretty much interacting with them directly. And if you have a bad DM going on with it, even with, like, the best possible group that you have together, it can... get slowed down to a sluggish halt to the point that everybody's just kind of wincing and cringing.
I got to tell you this story because Rob would love me telling this story. There used to be a guy on our street called Jim Smith, okay? And he was a a fucking solid built guy that you would not want to mess with. But he was a okay. He has the most unusual voice, and I don't know if I wonder if I'm able to do it. He talked like this. He had a very deep voice. Okay, so
Remind me of Cookie Monster.
He talked like a monster. Thank you. He actually talked like a monster, and so he was kind of scary. He'd walk with his shoulders very upright, like he had something up his ass all the time, and would walk around like a monster. And he's the kind of guy you would not want to fucking make angry. He wouldn't beat you up. He would murder you. He'd rip your eyes out. I mean, he was terrifying. I don't know why. He's just this scary guy called Jim Smith. So we didn't invite him out too often, but one time we did.
I wonder why.
Yeah, well, I wonder why, because we were scared of getting killed. But for some reason, he was out this one day, and I don't know why. This is in '88. One of our friends made him the DM, and he understood all the rules. He was not a stupid guy. In fact, he's a highly intelligent guy. So he was the fucking DM. Okay, so what an unusual character to be the DM. And it was the quickest Dungeons and Dragons game I think any of us had ever played in history. There was three of us, and we're walking along this ledge, and then there was this boulder that showed up, and I'm not going to get into that, but it was the monster that showed up, and my friend Andrew is right in front. And this in the first start of the game. Oh, you go. I can't. I wish I could talk like him. I'll try. You walk. I can't do it. He's like, you're walking along, and we're like, oh, what happens? And a monster appears. And then I'll try to do it the way fucking Rob does it. So he's like, okay, bring out your dice. He's like, you hit, you miss, you hit, you die. And that was it. The game was fucking over. I was like, what? And I wish I could do the I need a lot of water to be able to do his voice, because it was so deep. You hit, you miss, you die. And that's exactly how he sounded. I can't do that again. That's all I got. I don't even have any water in this room. That was
that was anticlimactic. Is there more to this riveting battle going on?
Sorry. So yeah, there was some boulder that we saw, and then
no, I didn't mean you. That's what I would have asked him.
Oh no! You hit, you miss, you die, and that was our Dungeons and Dragons game, and the other two people got hit by a boulder and died, and we died within the first, I think, 5 minutes of playing, and the game was over, and we always laughed about that. About Jim Smith's legendary game.
Was that like literally part of his design? Was to have you guys dead very quickly?
No. It was weird because he wasn't a very big talker, obviously. Maybe he was somewhat strained to talk. I don't know. But as soon as we started playing, he's like, you're walking up this cliff. This monster appears. He's like, roll your dice. Okay, so you hit, you miss, you die. He's like, what? It's over? Oh. What? Yeah, and then everybody'd start arguing, and that's how D&D was for us back then, is that we'd all be playing, and to put it this way, you got to know this. It would take everybody all fucking day to make their characters, and then we'd start playing, and then somebody would piss somebody else off. They'd attack the other character, and then they'd kill them. Then there'd be an argument for the rest of the day about that, and that was our D&D game. That was a lot of our D&D games. It was ridiculous.
See, and that's probably one of the only things that ever bothers me about role-playing in general, is rolling up your characters. I swear it can be a day-long process.
Yeah.
And worse yet is if you're bringing in new people. Mm-hmm. So then you have to explain everything to them, and it can be kind of intense. There's been times where we were just like, all right, so we're starting at about 2 p.m. Yeah, we got the entire day to do it. 8 o'clock rolls around. All right, we might be getting ready to start. Sweet.
The great thing about nowadays is on Dungeons and Dragons, like .com or whatever, they had a character generator. Mm-hmm. So you go in and you say, I want this character, and they do all your stats and everything for you.
Oh, dude, one of the best things that I thought of in general was the idea of tablets.
Yeah.
Like having a tablet in the hand of every single person who's role-playing, you have no idea what, like, with how much better technology is, it makes things so much easier. You don't even need dice nowadays. Like, you can literally get dice rollers and stuff to go and do all that stuff for you. You can get things that actually keep tabs of, how much ammunition that you have, what items that you have, and all this other stuff, and it's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I love technology.
Yeah, I like technology a lot. I remember when they introduced 4th edition, everybody was like booing them when they heard it was going to, you could pay an online subscription. There was all this shit. People were just like, oh, and that's where technology was failing. Everybody's like, nah, you got to have the books and you got to have the dice and
Dude,
you got to all be sitting together.
I avoided 4th edition, and there's a lot of people who were trying to like go and bitch at me for doing that, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, third edition 3.5 is just fine.
So for how it was for me, I played 1st edition and I played 2nd edition, and then this is the funny thing. Remember when I told you I had that fork in the road, and I'm like, which direction am I going to go in my life? And I went the direction of like skateboarding and alcohol and fucking loose women. That's the direction I went in. But the funny thing is I've said it before, is that I started smoking cigarettes, and for the next 18 years, I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons. And then exactly when I quit smoking, I suddenly, I think it was 2 weeks into quitting smoking, I was like, maybe I had so much time on my hands. I don't know. The oxygen was like rushing to my brain. I was like, yeah, I want to play D&D again. And the very edition that had just come out, it was just coming out like a week later, was 4th edition. So for me, I jumped on it because I didn't have a preference at that point. It had been 18 years. I was like, oh, cool. I like Dungeons and Dragons. I will get the latest Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't realize that there was going to be a whole controversy. I only found out about that after I bought all the books. And at that point, I was committed.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I invited all my friends, and they got into it. And they were like me. Nobody had played D&D in years. So it was a way for us to get into it. And to be absolutely honest, let me say this. I've said it before. I personally think that to do with Dungeons and Dragons, it's not what edition you play. It's who you play with, who you DM with. And I think, yeah, there's always rule changes. There's always fucking rule changes. There's always updates and fucking other fucking manuals of this, and you need to redo this and do this. The reality is, it's all about who you play with. I played 4th edition and I played 5th edition, and they were exactly the same to me in how they played. Just the rules are different a little bit, but the experience is the same. Yeah, how I acted is the same.
Dude, 9 times out of 10, whenever I would role play with my friends, and it would confuse some people who were like die-hard role players like all the time. But we would just have house rules where we would kind of just, there's certain things with the system we were like, now we can forego this, or we'll change that, or why don't we just add in this? And, we're still trying to figure out a way to incorporate Magic the Gathering battles into Dungeons and Dragons and do our own system. Because
that'd be crazy.
We thought, because the Magic Gathering universe is gigantic and shit's just real crazy. And we're like, it'd be really cool if all the players themselves were planeswalkers. And then, they go into it, and we were just like, that would be cool as hell. And even thinking about it now, I'm like, that is awesome. It's just, everybody being parents and full-time jobs and school and other shit. It makes it very difficult to go and do, and that's why I just wish I hit the lottery and I'd be like, all right guys, you're retired, we're gonna go role play now.
Yeah, let's say that to all the audience listening. If you guys are in high school and you're in college and you're playing D&D and you got lots of time to play it, fucking play tons of it then. Because honestly, when you get older, it's so fucking hard. You can always get yourself saying, hey, yeah, I'm ready to go. Everybody else is always fucking... There's always something going on.
See,
it's always really
that's
high
one of the downsides to D&D is that it's definitely not a one-player experience.
No, or even a two-player experience. No. Even that's very, very difficult. It's always like, yes, you fight a monster. I beat the monster. Okay, we're moving on. It's so funny. I remember I played Dungeons and Dragons with this girl I went out with. Just when 4th edition came out, and I wanted to test out the rule system on her, and she wasn't very imaginative. Let me just say that to begin with. And it's so funny that I was like, okay, so you came across this monster. Okay, I fight it. Okay. It's kind of a Jim Smith story. Okay, but no, okay, I move forward then. Where am I going? Okay, you're going down the road. There's nothing to challenge her, only me. And you need other players to spice it up. You need at least 3 or 4 players. You need that. You can't play 2 players is tough. You only do that if you're really, I'm not saying hurting, but I mean hurting in the sense that you really got your fix at D&D. Only do it at that point.
The thing is, a lot of people, they don't realize whenever it comes to role-playing, is there's a lot of times where, I mean, you literally can do anything, and I don't think that actually completely registers with people.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, there's literally no limit except for the limit that you make. And that's really about it. You can be like, all right, my character is chaotic evil. Fuck it. So my character I'm rolling up is chaotic evil. And this is all going to be extremely bad because it's obvious that I'm probably not going to be able to get with a party. So your character is probably going to be bumping heads with everybody else who's playing. But that means that you're free to do anything and everything to upset the balance of how a traditional game can go. Whereas, you know, you can be like, all right, so, I don't know, roll to dodge, and you just start swinging at somebody. And that's it. One of the characters there, you just start fighting them. And if you ended up killing them, their character is dead for good. I mean, the DM could, like, bring them back, you know, or just roll up a new character for them. But you have the ability to do that instead of, all right, I go to town. I'm going to see what the weapon shop has. All right, I go to sleep.
Hey, okay. Great example of this is I played a couple of times with Brian from Game Deals, and the only limit of D&D is your game master, your dungeon master. And if they're putting up lines that you can't cross, you need to play with a different dungeon master or become a dungeon master and don't be that guy. Because he brought up a great story, and we've always laughed about it. Is he stopped playing with his DM? He had the story in high school. It stuck with me. I think it's funny. Where there's they sneak into this. I guess there's some virgin and she's getting sacrificed, and the DM's like, "What do you do?" And Ryan's like, "I'm gonna go fuck the girl." And he's like, "What? What do you mean you're gonna?" He's like, "Is anybody looking at her?" He's like, "Well, no." He's like, "Well, I'm gonna go fuck the girl so she's not a virgin, so they can't have the sacrifice." And the DM's like, "No, you can't do that." And he's like, well, why? Why can't I do that? And then Brian brought up the greatest example of D&D. He's like, why couldn't he do that? Of course he could do that. And hey, how about this DM? Instead of being so scared that he's going to ruin this little moment, why not make it even funnier? You know, so he does do that. And he's got his pants down. You got to do rolls on that. And then the guards come. There's a lot of different things that you can let him fucking deflower this girl and ruin their ritual.
Even better, like you have to roll to dodge. Okay, now your penis has to roll to dodge. You have to have a separate stat for your wiener now because
that's what we're talking about. It was like what do you roll it, like an endurance check? Like what do you do? And that's the fun. Enjoy D&D. Don't limit it. Don't limit it for somebody else, and don't let somebody limit it for you. Do whatever you want to do. Say if everybody's going north and you want to go south, go fucking south.
Exactly.
Go have fun. Go into some crazy thing. Yeah.
That's one of the things, like, it always bugs me is if somebody says, like, outside of the actual, like, role-playing game itself, you can't do that. That's a load of horseshit.
Yeah.
Like, all it does is, the minute that you start putting restrictions and limits into a role-playing game is the minute that you obviously just completely lost the point to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Like, the only limits I would say is, I don't know, if somebody was like, I'm chaotic good, well, I'm gonna go and rape all these women and burn down a village. Well, a chaotic good character wouldn't do that unless there was something that made you turn absolutely insanely evil and out of your mind. But it'd be obvious, like, well, that's pretty much against your character, so I would just ask him, like, okay, if you're doing this, your alignment's obviously going to completely change. You're aware of that, and a lot of people are going to be gunning for you and coming after you.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing, but you never tell them no.
Yeah, if they're making, yeah, exactly. If they're going against what they've chosen for their character, they can't do that. But if they want to go and do something that's aligned with their character, absolutely let them go and do it. I think, you know what's so funny is I've really been thinking about it lately. I see the limits on a lot of video games on their RPG systems. I used to play RPGs because I needed my RPG fix, and I love them. I still do, don't get me wrong, and I'm not bashing on RPGs, but sometimes it makes me realize the limits put on the older style RPGs. That really, it's so linear. There's only one way through the game. And I guess even when I was back in '88, I was always looking for games that, where it's every time I played would be a different game. It was never the same, and I can stretch the boundaries of my game world, and I can really affect the world. And so many video games have said that they can do that, but they don't. The only one that's kind of come close for me is Skyrim. That really has, and it's just that's why I like D&D so much. Is that you can affect your world, and you can do what the fuck you want to do. And I think that's part of my love for D&D. I love console RPGs more than anything, but fuck, do I like D&D even more? I think these days.
Well, here, let me ask you this: have you? I know that in my personal experience, I've come across people that like their reason for really getting into something and getting dedicated to something within D&D has always changed. But I've come across people that were in it for the adventure, in it for the story, in it for the social idea of it, and then there's people that were very into it just for being like, I'm stronger, yes, and what gear do I get now? Yes, like they have this MMORPG kind of fascination with playing the game and stuff. Do you come across a lot of different types of people that play for different reasons like that?
Oh, for sure. It's funny how your own personality sometimes really comes out in the game. Like my friend Swagger, as he walks around the fucking game world.
The legendary Swagger.
Yeah, he enjoys being the anti. He's more of the Jack Burton. If anybody's watched Big Trouble in Little China, he's so Jack Burton in the game. He's like the anti-hero, the guy who aspires to be fucking awesome, but isn't, but at the last minute is awesome. He likes wowing the group if he can. And he rarely does, but when he does, he wows them. Where another friend of mine, Brian from Game Deals, he likes to master manipulate people within the game. And he likes to win the game through conversations within his character. He enjoys saying, okay, I'm in town. Okay, I'm a part of this guild. So can I talk to any guild members and make this happen? He's always scheming. And that's his fun, beating the game through his schemes. Where, it is interesting people's motivations. What is Swagger's motivations? He just wants to be cool, but for himself. You know what I mean? In the end of the day, if these guys win or lose, it doesn't really matter as long as they can get their gist out of it. What do I want? What do you want out of the game, Alpha? What do you when you're playing the game, what is winning to you?
I really feel like I end up liking it for the adventure. The downside is 9 times out of 10 I end up getting into a leader position, which there was actual times that happened so often I got sick of it and was like, okay, I'm going to pick a mute. I'm literally a mute. I can't talk now. And the fucked up part is I end up becoming the leader. But
the mute leader, right? The mute blind leader.
Yeah, it was just one of those things like I don't know. I try to employ lots of charisma and get really into the characters and stuff. And I'm an animated person, but I like just being able to go crazy and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna go over here and we're gonna figure out this puzzle over here, and what that boss over there, fuck him, we're gonna kill the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. I don't know. Something about that. It's like. Take my basic personality, now just make it like 10 times bigger, and now I'm like some kind of crazy like wizard.
I think this is really deep here. I think what my motivation is when I really think about it was kind of what you're talking about there. I really like Dungeons and Dragons, and my motivation is when I completely do not feel the reality of my real life. I'm so into playing the game that I'm not even paying attention to anything else. I'm totally believing what we're doing. And I think that's when I can get that out of it, that's working for me. That's you know what I mean? When you're so fully committed and you're into it and you're having a laugh and you're into it and you're loving it. There is nothing better at that point. That's when Dungeons and Dragons is working for me. It's not getting the biggest sword or the most money or killing the biggest dragon, but that's all a highlight too. But if I'm totally sold on that experience, then yeah, fuck. That's what I love about the game.
Dude, it is like, it's just so damn cool. And especially whenever, like, we've definitely both been a part of campaigns where we've made characters that we've remembered forever.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of cool to be able to reflect back on a character and thinking back, I remember making this decision. I remember being back in this town. And what's weird is you can actually remember having conversations, and you can remember places that you visit, and you could remember, like, imagining how everything looked in your mind.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
You know, and it's one of those things that, like, while it's really cool, it's something that you want to share with people. That's why one of the reasons it was so fucking important for us to be able to go and make an episode like this.
Yeah,
to go and talk about that stuff.
I tell you, like, for anybody who's seen my like Dungeons and Dragons stories, I talked about Swagger and how he like beat the Weretiger, blah blah blah, and that's such a legendary story that honestly, it's one of those ones. I think it's about 5-6 years ago that happened. Now I remember it with ferocious detail. I mean, every single fucking aspect of that, and I was hung over as fuck DMing that game. I'll never forget it. It was one of those moments that when we were finished, I sat on the couch and I was like, this is a legendary moment that I will never forget. And it was so legendary that Swagger, he goes to this bar. There's this bar that's in Vancouver here, and he's a regular there, like Cheers. And he sits at the fucking bar, talking to the bartender and telling people around him, I'm not shitting you. He's told me this, that he tells people about this story, about how he grappled this weretiger. I mean, he thinks it's fucking real. Like, obviously he doesn't, but he tells it. He's so proud of it, about this imaginary story that he did and how he was the hero and how he beat Dungeons and Dragons. He loves it. He'll be telling that till the day he's fucking dead. That's
one of the reasons that role-playing is so damn cool, is because you actually get to have memories.
Yeah.
You get to hang out with your friends. You get to go and make an experience that, no video game is ever going to be able to replicate.
No.
And that's really the truth. A video game is already a predetermined, thing. Whereas you make this up as you go along, and then the really epic adventures and stuff and the moments like that, those become like permanent fixtures in your memories that you'll forever talk about, just like we are now.
It's kind of, I think the experience is exactly, it's like when you're sitting by yourself and you're reading a book and you're imagining everything, imagine that concept, but playing it, and you're interacting that experience with everybody else. That's what Dungeons and Dragons is. That's what it is.
What's nice too is there's a lot of people who they will have a little bit of trouble trying to imagine every single aspect of something because everything's just written down. That's why when you had brought up the whole painting of miniature figures and stuff, they actually have figures for D&D that you can use, like from monsters to weapons, all sorts of stuff. There's like full-blown maps that you can go and get that are printed out, or you can just make your own. There's ones, people have made like 3-dimensional dungeons and stuff, and like you actually move around on a grid. I typically never get to play that way, but I liked when I got to, because you had something right in front of you, and you could actually imagine all the stuff even more so. Because it seemed, describing it or even viewing it seems like crude by comparison to, what it could be. We unfortunately don't have a holodeck on fucking Star Trek or anything, but this is the next best thing, and it's effective and it works.
I think, it's funny that you say that. I think both ways are effective. Over here, I collect the Pathfinder miniatures. I got a lot of them. I got hundreds of them. And so I got a monster for every fucking scenario known to mankind. And we draw maps. We got this big thing, and there's erasable pens, and we have this big grid map, and we draw on there. Oh, I draw on there because I'm DMing most of the times, and I've got all the figurines. And I've always liked doing it that way. But I tell you, when I went down to Portland and we were playing on the train ride down, we didn't have the luxury of bringing all that stuff with us. We had like quick little sketches, and I was also being a player character, which I haven't been in a long time. And I had equally, if not more fun, because I was just imagining it more. And I thought to myself, man, I spent hundreds, if not thousands, of miniatures and all these extra stuff, and I'm like, it all works. It's whatever you want to do, you know what I mean? Whatever you want to invest into your own hobby. You say, you know what, we like miniatures. You can do it that way. But you don't need them to. Not having them is also very cool.
Yeah,
especially
don't think there's a right or wrong way, because there isn't.
No. Yeah, there's no right or wrong way to fucking roleplay anything. You know what I mean? For sure.
There is. There's the right way is you're having fun. The wrong way is you're not having fun.
You're not. Yeah, and your DM's not allowing you to have sex with the virgin. You know?
If somebody says that you can't actually bang in the game, that's just silly. The only way that you should be told that you can't is if you're a fucking eunuch. And guess what? You still have holes in you somewhere.
Yeah. Totally. At least say, okay, at least let me do some rolls for it, for fuck's sake. And that's where those come into
At least let me make the attempt. I still got 2 fists. I swear I can insert them.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, I know. Hey, so we spent this time, we're over an hour now, just talking about Dungeons & Dragons in general. We should spend another episode one time talking about just the Dungeons & Dragons video games we played. That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, and there's so many from PC to console to arcade. It's kind of nuts to think how many there is. And what's weird is how many D&D games that there are that you don't know are actually based off of D&D. Because it doesn't say it in the title, and that's always crazy too.
Yeah, well, you know, before we do the episode, I'll write a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of games I played down. I'll have to remember, because there's so many.
There's tons. That's why it was always kind of shocking to me, like, wait, this is based off the D20 system? Wow, did not know.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit. Fuck, so cool. Yeah, another episode, and I'm glad we got to talk about D&D, and I'm sure we'll come back to it. We've only scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's always more. There's always more, and that's what's nice, because an hour like this flies by, and we're like, holy shit. But there's so much more to go. So, at the very least, we hope that you enjoyed all this banter.
Yeah, and if you're on the fence about D&D, you're like, I don't know, you know, see, like if any of the other friends are interested in it or anything like that, give it a shot at least. And I'm telling you though, it is the people you play with. I am going to be honest about that, but you know, give it a shot. It's such a great game. We have such great memories with it, right? It was such great memories.
Oh no, we've got tons. I mean, I can tell you right now, if you're really into the idea of it and you're not sure if you want to invest in it, you can go and download the PDFs of the books online for free. Just torrent them. There you go. Yes, I'm telling you to steal, just so you can get into the hobby and then actually invest in it because you found out you did enjoy it.
And actually, it's not stealing anymore. You can go to DungeonsDragons.com and download the rule set for free.
Oh yeah, fuck, you know what, I completely forgot. Well, there you go, you don't actually have to be a thief like Alpha tells you.
Go rape and pillage anyways, just for the sake of doing it, because it's fun.
It's all, it's chaotic neutral, I swear. That's totally my alignment.
Oh my god, too good. So, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you. Did we figure out a way to end this fucking podcast yet?
You know, we still haven't. We'll have we said last time we'll have an outro, so we've said that since the first one.
Oh my god. Well, we're never going to figure it out. We'll be on episode 100 going, about that outro, we said we were going to do it like 99 episodes ago and we fucked up.
Yeah, it happens. It, you know, shit happens. Well, either way, bye.
Bye.